today Marty Greif and, of course, Tim Stauning from WSI Digital. So we're very much looking forward to getting started. Just want to turn it over to my coworker, Nina Rinaldi, for just a bit of housekeeping, and we'll get the presentation started. So Nina, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Good morning. Just a couple of quick administrative notes before we get started. We are recording the webinar today. So you'll all, as long as you have registered for the program, you will receive a copy of the recording as well as the slide deck after we finish. So don't worry if you miss something that happens fast. So the way that we're going to take your questions today, only our presenters will be unmuted. Everyone else will stay muted. We're going to take your questions via the text chat. So most of you have been with us before, but just in case you haven't, where you can find that is, if you're on a computer, if you move your mouse, you'll see your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of the screen. There's a chat icon. You can click that and go ahead and type any questions that you have as the presentation is ongoing. If you're on a smartphone or a tablet, you may have to tap your screen to see that Zoom toolbar and to access that chat function. So that's how we'll take your questions. You can send your questions to the public chat. You can send them to everyone. No need to send them to me privately or to anyone privately. Go ahead and just drop them in the public chat. And our presenter today is sharing his screen. It is up on the screen now. So if a couple of people could just let me know in the chat, can you see Marty's screen with the title of the webinar and the logos? Okay, I'm getting a couple of yeses. So thank you so much. It looks like our screen share is working out great this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to Tim Stauning from WSI.
Thank you, Nina. Very much appreciated. And John, for the opportunity to share some ideas and some thoughts with the Chamber community this morning. As John mentioned, my name's Tim Stauning. I'm the co-owner of WSI. We're a digital marketing agency here based right in Cape May County. And just maybe a few minutes to chat a little bit about our background and the network that we belong to. A little bit about the brief history before we turn it over to our guest speaker. Our agency is part of a global network of internet consultants. We're part of a WSI global network, and it's a pretty powerful network. It's really based on sharing knowledge, resources, education. In fact, one of the resources that we're tapping into today is our guest speaker, who is an expert in his field, and I'll chat about him in a few minutes here, but we're extremely pleased to have Marty with us today. A little bit about our skill set in terms of what we bring to the table as an agency. Of course, website design. We do a fair amount of content creation. We're involved with SEO, search engine optimization type programs and plans. We do a fair amount of social media marketing, and overall just digital strategy is kind of what we bring to the table as an agency. I think the thing that we focus on is the most, and probably our sweet spot, is the small business community. We're locally based here. We're very accessible, and we think we're very responsive. And as we think about where we are today, in the marketplace, obviously we've been sort of inundated with all this information about financial assistance from the federal government and from other sources that we're trying to get our hands around and understand and apply to our business. But the other thing is looking at the reset of our economy and looking at the reset of when we go back. And we certainly hope that's sooner than later. And as we think about that, I think probably many of us on this call are thinking about your own business, your own organization, as it relates to, are we in the right place from a digital perspective, from an online perspective? And I think some of the questions that you might be asking is, what should we be doing with our marketing during these sort of uncertain times? Are we smart enough from an online perspective? is our website really doing, what it should be doing? Is it doing the job it should be doing? And so I've asked Marty to address a number of different sort of comments in his presentation. And he's going to be talking a little bit about, improving maybe what you're already doing online. Most of us have an online presence, but, it hasn't been optimized. If your website, hasn't been optimized, maybe it should be, and maybe it needs to be, and some tips on that. What about creating an online store? Is your business adaptable for online e-commerce activity? And if you haven't, maybe you should be thinking about that as we move forward into this maybe new normal that we're going to be in. What about pre-selling what you already have in your inventory? How to deal with that. And then maybe creating new offers from the service or the products that you already have, and trying to figure out how to reinvent a little bit about your marketing on those. So with that, I'm going to introduce Marty, Marty Greif. Marty is the president of Site Tuners. He's a Jersey guy. He's based in Tampa now, but his roots are in Jersey. He's a graduate of Glassboro State College, as it was known then, obviously known as Rowan University now. And Marty's been doing a lot of work in the sales and marketing area, and he's basically a conversion rate optimization specialist, and that is what you're going to be hearing from today with Marty. And he's really, really good at what he does. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's an entrepreneur. He leads a team of folks, and he's been involved in as I said, the sales and marketing world for the last 25 years. He's responsible for driving revenue growth at his company, establishing and nurturing partner relationships, and creating value for Site Tuners' broad customer base. So with that, Marty, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. And I'd also really like to thank John, Vicki, and Nina for allowing me the opportunity to speak to your audience. So thank you, guys. I do appreciate it. And when I was approached to do this, to Tim's point, yeah, I'm 27 years in New Jersey before I moved out, born and raised in Bergen County, and then obviously down to Glassboro State, as it was known at the time. So that kind of dated me a little bit. But that's all right. A couple other housekeeping things. I'm not schizophrenic. I have multiple screens. So when I'm looking over here, it's because I'm moving slides or looking at the videos, and when I'm looking right at the presentation. So don't think I'm twitchy. All right. So bear with me with that. The book is that I've written is at the publishers now. It should be out in about a month, and it's really the basis of this presentation and everything we do. It's all about relationships, and the things that we hopefully are doing in person are the same things that we should be doing online. And this book is based on my experience from decades of being in sales and marketing. And just to put this in perspective for what I'm going to share with you today, this is based upon real world experience with clients. And our clients range from people doing $1 million a year to Google has been a client of ours. And Google has actually hired us to optimize Google.com for PPC signups. So we go from small to medium to multi-billion-dollar corporations and everything in between. So what I'm going to share with you, what I'm going to share with you today is really based on having been there, done that, gotten scars. But the world's changed, and so I hate to start off this way, but we really need to talk about this. All right, these are some relatively recent screenshots. This is from about a week ago or so, and it just really struck me that it really has altered life as we know it, and if we're not paying attention to that in our marketing efforts, then we're being tone deaf. And frankly, you can't be tone deaf right now. People need that relationship, that personal connection more than ever. And the problem is you can almost taste the uncertainty in the air. I mean, it's that palpable. And what's worse, this site I don't know. I assume many of you probably even know this site. Uh, I look at this every day. It's like watching a train wreck. Okay, I don't even know what to say. This is from last night. I don't even want to know what it says this morning. Okay, you know, this is the environment that we're in, and frankly, you know, people are scared, and you can't blame them. And then you add to the fact that, you know, people are, you know, getting sick and potentially dying. You know, 22 million unemployed in the last, you know, what is it, month or so? I mean, this is a scary, scary time. And I know it's certainly affecting folks, you know, in Cape May County. So what's the point of bringing up all this bad news? Well, really it comes down to this. Uncertainty causes fear. All right. We feel it ourselves. All right. You know, will we get sick? Will our loved ones get sick? Will we have a job? Will customers come? There's all of these things that are going on. You know, the problem is nobody knows when this is going to end. You hear all sorts of different predictions, right? You know, we'll be back in June, or we'll be back in May, or it may be, you know, September, or it could be 18 months. There's all sorts of uncertainty around here. But the reality is, you know, for those who don't panic, and forgive me for saying this, but whenever there's something that goes on like this, there are people that struggle, and there are people that thrive. Okay, and so the goal today is to help you to not struggle and to potentially thrive, because it turns out there are always opportunities. And I'm going to share some things that I would suggest you consider doing. And I'm going to share some customer stories of how people maybe did panic and then changed what they were doing, and are now in going from being desperate to being okay to potentially even thriving. Okay, so and again, not all things work for all people. And so what I, you know, if at the end of this presentation, if you feel like, well, you know what, Marty didn't address us because we sell blue bananas to, you know, people who only drive Toyotas. I mean, I made that up, obviously. But if I didn't address your specific thing, reach out to Tim, and Tim will work with you to come up with an answer. All right, so what are the opportunities that are out there? Well, first off, if you're already online, you need to improve what you're doing, all right? Because the old ways don't work anymore. There is a new normal coming about, and so we really need to address what that new normal is. And if you are a business that is completely dependent upon, I'll say, foot traffic, all right, and there's nothing that you can do, although I question that, but if there's nothing you can do to pivot online, then what you need to do is prepare for the recovery so that you hit the starting gate, I mean, with a bang, and you're off. And we're going to talk about that. And we've seen people creating online stores. And I've got an example that blows my mind, all right, that I'm going to share with you a little later on. Pre-sell what you have, and I've got an amazing story about that, okay, and how to do that, and then create new offerings. All right, so let's start with the first batch, and improving what you already do and preparing for the recovery. Now, this next slide is going to sound like I started off with, you know, some bad news, and I'm talking about that there's opportunity, and I'm going to go back to something that's going to appear like I'm you know, slapping you in the face with a wet fish, and I don't mean to do that, but I really need you all to start thinking about this. We're all selfish, all right, and this is really an important concept today. All right, it's always been important, but it's even more important today. So we're driven by our own instincts. All right, we talk about ourselves. We're bad listeners. Okay, I mean, seriously, if there is not a person in this audience who will say, well, I never forget people's names or faces, you know, I'm not buying it. Okay, I'm just not buying it, right? I mean, it's all about us. It's all about us going me, 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 you know? And so we gravitate towards things that bring us gratification. We are literally animals, okay? We're animals. And I don't mean that like, you know, Animals in Animal House, the movie. I mean, we used to be cave people, right? And so we're hardwired for certain things. And so all of these selfish instincts are all because, we needed food and we needed shelter and we needed, to procreate. And all of these things are biological in there. And so it's not your fault that you're selfish. And I will go a step further. People say, well, not everybody's selfish. There's people who donate to charity. You know what? There's a reason people donate to charity. They donate to charity because it makes them feel good. Okay? It's all about them. Even though, yeah, they're doing good for the world, they feel good about it. It gives them some kind of gratification. Everybody is selfish. So if we can buy into that concept that we are literally animals and we're selfish, that translates into other things we do. So, the chamber's got meetings, all right, in person, or, well, you did, right? And now we're doing it virtually. And someday we're going to go back to meetings in person. And I go back to how many times if you were new and you come to a chamber meeting and you meet 20 people, right? And you forgot their names. You've done this, okay? Here's the problem. We do it in business too, and we absolutely do it on our websites, okay? And that's a problem, and it doesn't work anymore. We need to spend more time building relationships in person, virtually, and on our website. So here's the thing. On a website, basically, you need to make a real connection with your visitors. There's 3 questions that every visitor asks when they go to a website, all right? Am I in the right place? How do I feel about this? And what am I supposed to do here? And I'm going to give you examples of each, all right? And here's the thing. I will share this, and Tim can comment on this later too. 99% of the websites out there don't answer these questions. And what that means, and Tim and I have actually worked on a couple websites, in the Cape May County area, right, Tim? So, yeah. So, and we've gone through it, and it's like, oh my God, absolutely right. Nobody thinks to answer these questions, and you've just got to. So let's talk about what that really means. Am I in the right place? It matches, you got to match the visitor intent and their expectations. And I always say this, don't make your visitors think, okay? Now, here's a great example. So this is the question, am I in the right place? The Google search on the top was New York homeowners insurance quote. And then up came Progressive Home Insurance, all right? And then is the website. Now, I bring this up and you say, well, that matches the user intent, but it doesn't, okay? And I'll give you some specific examples why it doesn't. Now, we've all seen Flo on TV, right? We all know Progressive. They're a brand. Brands can get away with things that non-brands can't, all right? But I can't tell you how many times I've done something where I've gone to an ad, I go to the page, it asks me, what my location is. And by the way, cable providers are like the worst for this, all right? I've had these real experience. You put in your zip code and it says, we don't service that area. Really? Then why were you paying for an ad to drive traffic to a website if you don't service that area? What is the possible logic for that? So here's the problem. It says New York Home Insurance. I don't know that they sell New York Home Insurance. I'm assuming they do. And then I get here, and again, nothing in here says New York Home Insurance. Let me show you a different version. This is a company, same exact, in Long Island, same exact one, New York quote, New York Home Insurance quote, and compare the top 10 best NY home insurance quotes, right? Top rated from New York insurance companies, right? New York home insurance quotes. Is there any question of, am I in the right place, right? No. I asked for New York home insurance quote. The ad said New York home insurance quote. The website says New York home insurance quote. And here's the thing, there's a number in here. You notice on the right side, it says an 86% increase in leads. This, before we worked with them as a client, they didn't do this. By doing exactly what I'm saying here, it increased their lead flow for qualified leads by 86%. You have any idea how much money that is, for a company like this? You got to match the user intent, all right? And that am I in the right place question, that's the first thing someone asks when they get there. And if you make them hunt around on your website to answer that question, you're already frustrating them. Okay? So, all right, next on here, how do I feel about this site? All right, that's the next thing. Do I trust them? Do I feel good? Is it credible? So here's an example, and I love this example. In the southwest of the United States is a company called Academy Sports and Outdoor. And it turns out you can buy grills online for literally thousands of dollars. I did not know this, right? And you know, here's a grill I could buy. It's almost $2,000. And they let me know that it's in stock. Okay. And it's a modern design, but there's nothing that makes me feel good about them as a company, right? So they're asking me to put my credit card in online for $2,000, and I don't know who they are. Let's compare that with a competitor of theirs, Barbecue Guys. You'll notice here that in the top right-hand side, they've got their phone number. Turns out, we've tested this, I can't tell you how many times, phone number in the top right-hand corner is the largest trust symbol on the face of the planet. Real companies, real organizations have a phone number in the top right-hand corner, okay? By the way, these same concepts work for mobile too. It's not just desktop. I'm just showing you desktop because it's frankly easier to see in a webinar. But you'll also notice Better Business Bureau, 100% protected. You know, for you in Cape May County, I would hope you'd have a logo that's the chamber logo that shows you're a proud member. That's a trust symbol, okay? They've got reviews on here. I mean, look at all the trust on here. Let me just go back for a second. If I'm going to put $2,000 in on a website, you think I'm going to do it here? Or do you think I'm going to do it here? Which one makes me feel safe? And today, and you know, here's the thing, we've been preaching this for, I can't tell you how long. But in today's environment with the new normal, this is even more important. People need to feel safe. Remember, uncertainty breeds fear, right? Causes fear and concern. You have to make sure that you are giving all of your visitors a ton of love when they're coming to your website. Frankly, every touch point you've got, and that's a whole nother discussion, by the way, that we do, which whether it's what happens when they call you, when you send an email, when you get a piece of mail from them, every single touch point with you and your clients or your prospective customers, we always say this, make sure that everyone gives them love, okay? Even if you're sending them a past due notice, okay, for something, give them some love in that email, all right? It's true, you catch more flies with honey, all right? Give people love. All right, I beat that one into the ground. What am I supposed to do here? That's the next one, and this one just drives me batty, okay? And the whole reason here is, again, don't make me think. Show me things so that I can look at it and I immediately go, oh, that makes sense. Here's what I'm supposed to do here. So here's an example of a client in Australia. This was the before image. What am I supposed to do here? Well, apparently they sell, I don't know, and I can't pronounce this right, Le Creuset, and they sell some knives, apparently. Okay. At least they have the phone number up there, which is nice. Well, we turn that into this, okay? So now what happens when I get here? You notice they've got the phone number. Look at the trust. Free shipping, Australian family business, trusted by 500,000 clients, right? Look at what we did here. And then the largest range of kitchenware online, superior service, delivered fast. And then it's really clear. If I'm looking for bakeware, I go here, cookware here, and it turns out that there's a couple rows here. It makes it really easy for people to answer the questions. Am I in the right place? Well, if I wanted kitchenware, I'm in the right place. How do I feel about it? Well, they got a lot of trust, so I feel pretty good about it. And what am I supposed to do here? Is anybody confused about what you're supposed to do here? No, right? As opposed to in the other one, you see this all the time on e-commerce site, they splash up something and you have to go hunting through their site to go find what you're looking for. That's just crazy, okay? You have to, and forgive me when I say this, I don't mean to be mean to anybody, but what we always tell everybody is you have to design your your website as if your visitors were lazy and or stupid. And I know that sounds terrible, and forgive me, but here's the thing. Let me make it not so obnoxious, okay? Although as I was talking to the folks from the chamber, I may be a New Jersey boy, but I was right near New York, so I'm a little bit more, well, aggressive, obnoxious New Jersey. So I apologize for that. I'll try to tone it down. All right. But here's the thing, all kidding aside, and I know I look like an idiot when I do this, but if this is your gas tank of patience in your mind, right? And this is full over here, you don't know before I get to the website, all right? Or before I call your company, or before I read your email, you don't know if the dog peed on the rug. So my patience level is here. I had a fight with my spouse. One of the kids was really obnoxious. You have no idea where I am in my patience level before you engage with me. And every time you make me think, you're eating up a little of that patience. Does that make sense, folks? And you eat up too much of my patience. And what am I going to do? I leave. I bounce, right? Don't make me think. Don't make your visitors think. Give them love. Make it easy so they trust you, and don't make them think. If you do that in all of your touch points, not just your website, your business increases, exponentially. So let's talk about how to apply these. Let me give you real specific things. If you've got a website, because one of the things we talked about is how do you make it better? If you've got a website today, let me give you some specific things that you can do right now that will absolutely make a difference. So let's apply the 3 questions to your website, okay? Let's start with removing rotating banners, displaying visual navigation with content, reducing the number of fields, and placing trust symbols in the header. And I don't care if you are a brick and mortar place, or you're an e-commerce store, or you do lead gen, or you're a not-for-profit. All of these things apply across all of these digits. We've done this for everything from churches and nonprofits all the way through to, like I said, massive corporations. The logic applies across the board. All right, so rotating banners, all right, and you've all seen those. You're on a page and the banner moves, right? And things move on the page, right? And so the problem with rotating banners is motion is distracting for visitors, okay? And rotating banners push the content down. And so why is motion distracting for visitors? Well, remember what I said earlier, that we are literally animals, okay? I mean, we're literally animals, right? So when we were running around with our spear or our club or whatever we were doing, right, in the olden days, when there was movement, all right, it would attract our attention and we'd look at it, right? Because what was movement? Movement might be, oh my God, the bear's coming to eat me. And I know I look like an idiot when I do that, but movement is a danger signal, okay? So every time there's movement on a website, whether it's a banner or something else, what happens is, and I'm going to exaggerate, it's like, what's that? What's that, right? And so the problem with that is that's causing what we call cognitive friction, and you're interrupting the person's thought process. So let me show you an example. This is was a rotating banner, all right? I don't know, now they're a brand, all right? So I kind of know what they do, but again, it's distracting me. It's not doing all the things you're supposed to do in when I land on a page. I'm not sure if I'm in the right place, other than I know my brand, I'm not feeling good about this, and what am I supposed to do? It fails. As opposed to this, all right? The banner doesn't rotate. Skincare, makeup, and hair. This is what they sell. I'm sorry, anybody confused? No, right? So nothing moves. And so here's the problem with the other problem with rotating banners. Companies always say things to us like, well, we have all these things we want to tell them. Well, that's back to me. No. Why is somebody coming here? They're coming here because they want to buy skincare, makeup, or hair. So if you do that, there's the thing called banner blindness. They're not going to see it, all right? This is the kind of thing that absolutely will increase your sales, your conversion rate, whether you're generating leads on a form, or you've got that, you want them to donate to your not-for-profit, or whatever you want them to do. Banners are bad. And I will tell you, removing these rotating banners and putting in a static banner, we've tested this. I can't tell you on how many websites. It increases your conversion and your revenue from the people who go through that homepage by about 10 to 15%. Okay. Now, I don't know about you all, because I don't know you, but I bet you if you've got a rotating banner and you can squeak out an additional 10%, okay, just by fixing this one thing, I would hope you would go do that right after this call, right? All right, next comment, next thought on here. Visual navigation. Again, don't make me think, right? This is, again, the concept. So this was someone we helped, you know, that I wasn't sure if this was a blog or what this was, you know, and Juliet, who's this wonderful woman, okay, who is an esthetician, she created these products, you know, for the African American market and, you know, Black skincare, and really did a great job with this stuff, right? But this was her site. And the problem is when I get here, I don't feel good about it. I don't trust it. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to read the blog? There's all this stuff. You'd never know this was actually an e-commerce site. We turned it to this. We put tons of trust on here. The trust down, there's a Norton logo. There's As Seen on Black Doctor and Bell Online and all sorts of trust here. They've got a phone number up on the top. It says who they are and what they do. It's really clear what we want you to do. There's a value statement here, okay? And I will tell you the difference in her revenue and conversions from, and I'll go back to this, from this to this, after they were done, was a 277% increase, okay? Now, they did multiple things here, obviously. You know, they did the trust that we talked about. They made it clear. But this kind of stuff absolutely matters. Don't make me think, what am I supposed to do? Well, I want to look at face care, hair care, body care, or I want a sample kit. You know, there's no thought here. Again, you don't know if I've had a bad day or not before I show up to your website, right? Don't make me think. Make me feel like I'm in the right place. Show me the trust, right? And make it easy for me. And that's what this does, all right? And again, don't mean to be a dead horse, but most people, when you go back and look at your website, I want you to ask yourself the following question. Did I write my website or my emails or my script that I have for a telemarketing company, whatever it is, did I write it that it's all about me? Or I'm like, hi, I'm Marty, and you know, we improve websites, and you need to do this and you need to do that. No, you wouldn't talk like that to someone in person. Why are you doing it on your website? Okay. When you talk to somebody, you ask them, what problem are you trying to solve, right? I'm sure it may take a little while to get there, but you're basically asking them, what are you trying to solve? And you go, here you go. Same concept here. All right. Lowering the number of form fields, okay? Why is this important? And this one's going to blow your mind, okay? So form fields increases friction. So when you're doing lead gen, okay, here's an example of the before. And I know this is a hard to read. I get that. But this was such an awful example. I had to show it because here's what it's got. First name, spouse, last name, email, home phone, work phone, cell phone, best time to call, you know, state, how much are you in debt? And they could have kept going on. What did you have for lunch? Did it make your tummy happy? Would you go back to that place? I mean, this is just stupid, okay? I mean, you know, why would I go here and fill this out, all right? So let me show you what we turned it into. First name, last name, email, phone, state, debt amount, all right? This increased their conversion rate by 51%, okay? And that turned into, believe it or not, millions of dollars for these people. So let me ask a question. You can put this in the chat and I'll watch this, okay? Here's a question. How many, if you've got a form on your website, how many fields do you need to let somebody download a document? I'll just look at the chat real quick. How many fields do you need if you want someone to download something? Anyone want to take a guess? 2? Okay. 3? Okay. So I'm guessing on the 2, we're saying name and email address kind of thing, or maybe first name. I'm guessing 4, 2. Okay. Well, you ready for this? I hope you're all sitting down. The number of fields you need to get someone to download something is 0. And you're going to say, well, how do I sell them if I don't know who they are? Why do I just let them download stuff? Remember I said that we want to give people love? Well, if you've got a download and it's really a high quality download, and you provide value in it, at the bottom or in the middle, or maybe in the middle and the bottom of this download, you actually have a call to action. And then when you do that call to action, it'll take them back to your website where for them to get more information, they would put in maybe their 2 or 3 fields like you've talked about. But here's the thing. By doing that, by giving something of quality up front, you have earned the right to ask for the next step. Because if you do forums, and I think probably many people on this call are doing this, we all have a spam email address. Mine's an AOL email address from the old days. So when I fill in a form where I don't want to be bothered by those people, I give them my AOL email address, and I never check it. Excuse me, folks. So I don't check it except to go there real quick to validate my email address, and then I never look at it again. So that lead that you thought you got wasn't a real lead. But here's the thing, we've tested this. If you give people a really high quality information, whether it's watching a video, downloading a document, whatever it is, if you give them something, it invokes the principle of reciprocity, which means you give before you get, and they will give you a good email address. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Excuse me while I cough for a second. Sorry about that. So anyway. And we've tested this time and time again. Now, having said that, if you don't have follow-on information that you could give them, all right, if you only have the one thing, then the answer is yes, you need their name and an email address, right? Or name and phone number. You need something. But if you have or have the ability to have follow-on information after that first initial thing, you will have so earned the right to talk to them later on. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. All right, trust symbols in the header. Why is that important? And you've seen some, we talked about the phone number in the top right-hand corner, right? Which is, it makes people feel really good. So here's the deal. This is a real client of ours again. And this is, you know, weight loss pills for crying out loud. Oh my God, you know, talk about needing trust. Is there anything on here that makes me feel good about this site? No. There's nothing secure on here. There's nothing, I don't know what I'm supposed to, this violates all the rules. It just does, right? And we turn that into this. And you'll notice they've got a 60-day money back guarantee. They've got a Norton Secure in the bottom left. And look at some of these other trust symbols. And I'll actually, you know, go a step further. You've got 233,075 plus clients, quality guaranteed, 4 million US, and the phone number. You see these trust symbols, all of these? They made them up. They made them up. But you know what? They worked. It worked really well. Now, would the Better Business Bureau or the Chamber be better trust symbols? Yeah, but they didn't have that. So they made them up. Trust symbols in the header are important, and you don't have to get carried away. You don't need a billion of these things, okay? But something, and the reason you do something here is you don't know what page they're going to land on. And if it's in your header, it's in their header, whether they land on the home page or from some other reason they land deep inside your site, the trust is still there. Hopefully that makes sense, okay? So, creating an online store. Let's talk about this. This is a real pivot. So I'm going to tell the story first. There's a company in Tampa here. I'm sorry, I moved to Tampa 20 years ago. We talked about being from New Jersey, but you know I live in Tampa now, right? And that's a whole nother story. I went back home in the winter, and I thought I was going to die. Okay, I mean, just you get used to warm weather. So, all right, but creating an online store. So there's a company here in Tampa, and they sold fish to the cruise industry. Okay, and they sold an order could be $100,000 or more, right? And that's a lot of fish, right, folks? I mean, think about a cruise ship, how much fish they buy. Well, when this pandemic started, they kind of lost their cruise ship business, but they said, no, it's okay. And they didn't panic because they thought, we can sell the restaurants, right? So they were selling the restaurants. And then, you know, another couple of weeks went by and they couldn't sell the restaurants anymore. So what did they do? They created this. This site went up in, I think, less than a week. Okay. Now, does this site do everything I talked about here? No. I mean, this site violates a ton of rules, but I will tell you, this saved their business. Okay. So they went from brick and mortar to online in about a week. Now, could this be better, you know, with trust symbols and all the things we talked about? It absolutely could. All right. But it's pretty impressive to go from 0 to revenue inside of a week by creating a store online. And for those of you who want to do something like that, okay, you can do that really easily. For example, Shopify, if you're not familiar with it, is an e-commerce platform. And Shopify is offering a 90-day free trial now. Normally it's like a week or two. 90 days, you don't have to pay them. And you can put up a store, you know, relatively quickly, a week, 2 weeks, you know, and it's designed so that, you know, anybody, even non-technical people, could potentially design that, you know, create that store. Now, again, I've given you some things that you should be doing, right? With trust symbols, and you can put all that in Shopify. So you can create in Shopify a really high quality, high converting store, or you can create one that kind of looks like this, that looks a little bit like Who Did It and Ran, all right? But my point being, something is better than nothing, and then you can move on to improve it over time, because, you know, all of this is doable in a reasonably short period of time. So I don't know what you're selling, or if you're brick and mortar and you want to move to online, but you can absolutely do that, all right? So that's one example. And again, I would recommend that you consider Shopify to do that. The next one, all right, which is pre-sell what you have. A client sent me an email that, and I won't say what was in it per se, but it started off with, "We are in trouble," okay? Although he was much more graphic than that, as you can imagine. And he said, "Can we talk?" His revenue went to 0 overnight, went to 0. And he went to 0 because his supply chain broke, right? He couldn't sell anything. So in looking at his problem and figuring out what he did, we actually changed his business processes, and we got him back 96% of his revenue in 2 days, okay? So he's reasonably happy, as you can imagine, and we're in the process of actually creating new products for him. So what is the site? In his instance, what he was selling was information from the government. And for those of you who were in the military, you all know what a DD-214 was. For those of you who don't, when you are discharged, when you are honorably discharged from the military, you receive your discharge document, which is a DD-214. And you can get it free of charge from the government. But as anyone who has dealt with, well, let's just say the government trying to get a loan right now through the through the wonderful process that they've all put in place, you know that dealing with the government is not always a lot of fun, right? And there's all sorts of weird hurdles. So they've created a business around going to these centers and doing the work, the paperwork for these military vets, right? And so they just make it a lot easier for people. But the problem is the government shut down, okay? So it was non-essential, so they can't get the documents. So what did they do? We changed their methodology, and now what happens is people get in the queue, all right? Because when the government opens up, there's going to be a flood of these things, so they're basically queuing it up to actually do it for people. So it's first come, first serve. And so they were able to generate 96% of the revenue with some changes in their methodology and some changing in their words. And so this was a home run for them. But you'll notice it's got trust on it. It's got the phone number. It's got all the things you need, right? All we had to do was change the concept to pre-sell, right? Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. And there's lots of ways to do that. Another option here, okay, is creating new offerings. So I will tell you, I'm going to show you an example of a client we're working with, but I will also tell you that we've actually done this now for, as crazy as it sounds, for churches, all right? And you might say, a church, a new offering for a church. What the heck could you have that could be a new offering for a church? I'm sure that you're all going, okay. It's not like we're creating a new God or something. I mean, that's just nuts. So what did we do? We said, you know what, we need to change so that you're streaming, you're live streaming your services. all right, so that you, the different pastors are safe and away from each other, all right? But you're live streaming, and you can take donations that way, and you can make sure that you're still getting your message out. And so we have seen with a couple churches, one in particular just blows my mind, his number of views versus the number of people that would come to his in-person services has gone up by about 2,000%. Okay, he's got more people now online watching him and participating than he did before. All right, so how does that apply to something other than a church? So here's a client who is, so like I said, I'm in Florida. This client is in Miami, which is where, or the Palm Beach area. This is where the pandemic is in Florida. I mean, we have a little bit of it here, but it's really big down there. So obviously you can't come to their studios anymore. So what are they doing? They're live streaming this, and we're in the process of helping them to monetize that so that it makes sense. First, they're building up a large audience, and so they're gaining a lot of people. And now it turns out that their reach is more than just in the Palm Beach area. Their reach is actually going across the United States now, and we are in the process of helping them get to the to the next level. So the reason I talk about these things, and every one of these is different, all right, and every one of your situations is different. Okay, and what I would strongly recommend is if you can take what I've given you today and it makes sense to you, you can just run with it. Great, all right. You can create a new offering. You can create a store. You could pre-sell what you've got. There's all sorts of things. You can put up donation buttons. There's things that you can do. If you're not sure how to do any of those, Tim would be more than happy to work with you individually to help you get there. So at this point, what I'm going to do is turn this over into the Q&A section. We've got, about 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A. And Tim, hopefully Tim or John or Nina or Vicky, one of you has been monitoring these, because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so I couldn't watch all the questions. Okay.
Yeah, Marty. Well, first of all, thank you so much for a terrific presentation. Really helpful, very, very good tips and pointers. And the thing I think that the biggest takeaway that at least that I have on this, and I'm a digital marketing guy, so I could listen to you for another 2 hours, I think. But these are some of the tips and some of the recommendations are relatively quick, easy fixes. So it's not an overly cumbersome or tedious task to go in and do, adding things like the trust factors or making sure the phone number is in the right place, and just kind of doing some quick redesign work that could make some, implementing that could make a big difference with relative short amount of time. So that was kind of the one of the takeaways that I had. But yeah, we do have a few questions that I think we have time for here.
Sure.
In terms of just bounce rates, what would you consider to be, the question was asked by John, what would you consider to be an acceptable bounce rate? And it probably varies a lot by industry and by product maybe, and that sort of thing. But is there an industry sort of standard where bounce rates at below a certain number are classified as good?
Okay. So before I answer that, let me just switch one more slide so I can at least put your contact information up there so that people aren't wondering afterwards. All right, so let's talk about bounce rates. So it turns out bounce rates vary not just by industries per se, but bounce rates also vary by the type of content that you've got. So for example, it's not unusual to see a bounce rate of 90 or even 100% on a blog, right? Now, I'm not saying that's good. That's actually bad, right? But that's not unusual because the problem is it's a one and done, right? I search for something, my user intent, I want to align my user intent, with the visitor experience. So my user wanted information. I come to the website, you've got a blog, I read your article, and I leave. That's going to generate a very, very high bounce rate. And I think we can all, I'm sorry. Bounce rates. For those who may not know what a bounce rate is, my apologies. Okay. For those who don't know what a bounce rate is when somebody comes to your website and whatever page they land on, they immediately leave, all right, or they leave after reading it. They bounce off of that page. And Google in your analytics will tell you what the bounce rates are for your website and for individual pages. So that's considered a bounce, which is different from an exit. An exit is what page do I leave on, all right? And so pages have exit rates. So just forgive me for 1 second. And I'm sorry, because I just don't know the audience well enough to know what makes sense here. But so exit rates, if I go from page to page to page, whatever page I leave on has a rate of exit. Now, bounce is I'm only on that page and I bounce. Exit is that's the page I leave from, all right? So bounce, so now that we've defined bounce rate, so again, my apologies. Bounce rates, okay, are dependent upon, you know, the type of content you've got and the type of site you've got. So what I was saying in a blog, the user intent is to get information and they leave and you see 90 to 100%. But if you do something called content for conversion, all right, you can actually lower your bounce rates, you know, down on a blog to like 80 to 70%, which is still high. Because if you had a bounce rate on your homepage of 80 to 70%, you know, you got to bang your head against the wall because that's just awful across all industries. If you're running an e-commerce type of site, one would hope that your bounce rates, depending upon whether it's a landing page or your home page, your landing page should have a much lower bounce rate than potentially your home page. And the reason for that is that if you have a landing page, that means that you're doing some type of advertising or social media marketing to get them to a specific page, right? You're doing something on purpose to get them there. And so that's driving traffic somewhere. The user intent, if you've done that right, if you remember that, that example I showed you with Flow and Progressive versus the company that did the New York quotes, okay? Because they were driving traffic from one page to another, you know, from an ad to a page, and their bounce rate went down dramatically because it all matched. So if you align everything, the bounce rate goes down, and a really good bounce rate on paid advertising is below 50%, and we've seen them at 40 and 30%. I'm sorry, I really rambled all over the place there. So Tim, I could talk about this for like another 10 minutes, or do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on. As it relates to e-commerce, another question that I think is relevant that came in asks about the requirement for the ADA sort of compliance feature. Do e-commerce sites need to feature an ADA compliance aspect on their sites?
So, you know, here's the thing. I am not going to give legal advice, but I will give you marketing advice here. Okay, and so here's the deal. Being ADA compliant, all right, on your website is actually good business. All right, and there's studies on this. So I will tell you, regardless of what the law states, you want to do this, and here's why. There is a large percentage of people with disabilities in the United States, all right? And there have been studies that show that you're not just marketing to the people with disabilities, you are also marketing to the families of people with disabilities. And when you have a site that is more inclusive and is ADA compliant, all right, for, you know, hearing impaired, you know, or visually impaired, and they've got, you know, where it reads the content, there's all sorts of things that you can do, right? What happens is you generate loyalty within that community, and you are not just appealing to the people who in and of themselves are disabled, you are appealing to the people whose families they are. And the market size and reach when you add in the families is absolutely shocking how big it is. All right, so a way to increase your revenue is to absolutely be ADA compliant and let people know that you are. Okay, so I know I didn't answer the legal thing, and I never answer legal questions. All right, but I'll answer the marketing one. And I'll tell you from a marketing standpoint, being more inclusive will increase your revenue. And so hopefully, you know, that you know, I skirted the answer, but you always got to talk to a lawyer, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair and understandable.
Okay.
I think we have time maybe for one more question before I maybe bounce it back to John, maybe for some final comments. And maybe before I get to that, just wanted to draw some reference. If anybody's interested in taking advantage of a free audit that we're providing for website review, that is a landing page, and or feel free to contact me directly. We'd be happy to chat with you regarding your own website and some of the needs that you think you might have. And that's a free offer from WSI. So here's the final question. So you talked a lot about things that are going on in terms of website tips and redesign work. Do any of these, Marty, translate into other digital channels, especially social media? Some of the same concepts that you've just applied to a website.
Yeah, so let's talk about the social media channel, and hopefully, and so folks, we're going to run over by a minute or two, so my apologies, but I want to answer the question, and then I know John. So John, you okay if I just go a minute or two longer?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so so here's the thing: social media is all the things that we had talked about absolutely apply in social media, and let me give you some examples. All right. Give before you get. You heard me say, that kind of concept, all right? And you've got to make sure that you're giving people love. So in social media, whatever your posts are, make sure that you're adding value. And the value could be anything from it's something funny, or it's something informative, or make sure you're adding value, all right? And then, because we're doing social media, hopefully to generate engagement and or potentially revenue at some point in time, right? So it's a balance. We use a 5-to-1 or 7-to-1 ratio of giving before you get, all right? And here's the, so if you, let's just use 5-to-1 for example. I send out an educational, and let's say I'm doing educational or humorous, it doesn't matter. I do an educational social media post. I do a second one. I do a third one, I do a fourth one, I do a fifth one. The sixth post can be a little bit more self-serving because you've given value, hopefully, in the first 5. Now, we like 7-to-1 better than 5-to-1, but you can do 5-to-1. And so basically, as long as it all matches, so whatever you're doing, all right, is if you were a not-for-profit and you were talking about your your community, and I don't know what your community is, right? But let's pretend it's whatever, and you're talking about helping these people and what you do, and you're providing real information. You're not asking for a donation. You're not asking for anything, right? But it's all about, here's what's going on, keeping people informed. It's thought-provoking, it's interesting, and so on, and in the last one, you could ask them for help, right? Now, there's another step in there. In your social media posts, if you're driving them to articles on your blog, and this is where or on your site, okay, this is where we talk about content for conversion, all right? Again, in a really good or well-designed informational article on your website, you provide tons of value. And when they scroll down, halfway in the middle, you can actually put your own little ad. Would you like to support, the so-and-so not-for-profit? Or if you don't want to put it in the middle, you could put it at the bottom. For more information, contact, Joe Not-for-Profit. I'm making this up, guys, because I don't, but the point is, if you provide quality, you've earned the right to ask them to be involved. So the same exact concepts of give before you get absolutely apply in social media marketing, okay? And I'm hoping that you're all doing something like that now, because if you're doing social media where it's like me, gimme, you're shooting yourself in the foot, okay? Does that make sense, folks? I'll turn that back to John and, Nina and Vicky and Tim. Is that, we're good? Or you want me to go a little deeper, or how are we feeling here?
John, there's one or two more questions that popped up here in the interim while Marty was just chatting here. Do we have time, or do we want to just close it up?
Well, I think we should be mindful of everyone's time and wrap it up. Tim, your email is right there. So people, I think, feel free to reach out to Tim. I'm sure you would help him out. And wow, that's some great information. Marty, I agree wholeheartedly across all forms of marketing that givers gain, and you definitely have to do or give before you get. So Thank you so much, Marty. Thank you so much, Tim. This has been some great information. And thank you to our audience today. We really appreciate you putting your trust in the chamber and your fellow members to bring you the information that you need. And we're going to be doing that consistently. Along those lines, I wanted to remind everyone that we have a webinar tomorrow with the New Jersey Department of Labor Commissioner, I believe on the topics of unemployment and some other things. Registration is still open. You can go to CapeMayCountyChamber.com/events to register. And for this webinar tomorrow, you'll need to submit your questions in advance, and there'll be an ability to do that once you register. So again, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much.
Bye, Mom.
Bye-bye now.